Last Tuesday, the 28th of Av, was my father's 50th yahrzeit. Joe Moseson, Yosef Meyer ben Harav Chaim Yecheskel Vasara, Zichron Lavracha. 50 years, a very long time. Parshat Shoftim, which we are reading this week, teaches a number of mitzvot. Tzedek, Tzedek, tirdof, justice, justice shall you pursue, is one of the most famous ones. This mitzvah was a hallmark of my father's life. While everyone's father is special, mine was certainly no exception, and I want to share with you some of the things about who my dad was and some of what I learned from him which helped shape the Jewish woman I am today. He came from a family of distinguished rabbis. He lost his mother when he was 7 years old. He was raised by his older sisters. All 4 of his brothers became rabbis, and both my aunts married rabbis. While my dad studied at Yeshiva University, he decided not to become ordained as a rabbi, but became a social worker and went into Jewish communal service. He became director of Jewish community centers, what we in the New York City area here call YMYWHAs. My parents taught me many things, as they should, about what being a Jew meant. My dad most often taught by example. I learned about Gemilut Chesedim, acts of loving kindness, when I was very young. In 1956, when I was about 6 years old, a man and his wife came to live with us for a while. They didn't speak much English. They were a Hungarian refugee couple. HIAS, the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society, was one of the agencies helping to resettle people fleeing the communist takeover of Hungary. Because my dad was a representative of the Jewish community in Binghamton, New York, he had contacts in HIAS, and my parents were asked if they would sponsor some refugees. They never hesitated. They paid no attention to those who complained that perhaps some of these refugees were secretly communist agents seeking to infiltrate our country. My dad helped organize the community, and an apartment was found and furnished for them. Until that time, they lived with us. My dad helped the man become certified to do the same work he had done in Hungary, and his wife became a teacher at the JCC nursery school. They became 2 of our closest friends. When I was older, I asked my parents about why they had done this. They told me that so many times in our past, Jews fled persecution, and rarely did anyone help them. Therefore, it's our responsibility as Jews to help anyone running from danger and oppression. How disappointed my father would be to see the reaction in the United States today to those fleeing persecution in their homelands who seek refuge here. Long before I ever really heard the words tzedek, tzedek, tirdof, justice, justice shall you pursue in the Torah, I knew what that meant. When we moved to Georgia in 1958, my parents treated everyone the same way, no matter their skin color or beliefs. Today, this doesn't sound like it's even worth mentioning. But in 1958, in Savannah, Georgia, it was not only not okay to do that, but dangerous to behave that way. However, my folks refused to behave any other way because they believed it would be wrong to do so. They became involved in the formal civil rights movement. This was also unsafe, and we became threatened by the Klan. I also became the recipient of some nasty anti-Semitic treatment at school. I heard many very vile things from students and sometimes from teachers before, during, or after being kicked, shoved, pushed, or having things thrown at me on the playground. I was 8 years old when we moved there. We stayed there until 1962 when I was 12. I remember once asking my dad that if doing these things, sit-ins, marches, and so on, were so scary and dangerous and people treated us so badly, why should we still do it? He told me we had no choice, that we had to do these things because we were Jews, and Jews are not allowed to stand by and see an injustice being done and not try to right it. Tzedek, tzedek, tirdof, he told me. Justice, justice shall you pursue. It's not enough, he said, to see something wrong and say, wow, that's awful. It shouldn't be that way. But as Jews, we have to say, wow, that's awful. It shouldn't be that way. How can I help fix it? We may not be able to achieve justice, he said, but we have to pursue it. He would be so sad to see that while many important changes have happened since then toward equality for all, that so much more remains to be done. There were 3 military bases in the Savannah area and a state prison. Savannah was also a major port of commercial shipping. Part of my dad's job was to be the Jewish Welfare Board liaison to the military there, but just delivering supplies wasn't enough for him. For example, when a local airman and his wife had their first child, a boy, my dad saw to it that there was not just a bris and a pidyon haben, but as nice a seudah mitzvah, a festive meal, as any family in the community would want. The airman and his family were thrilled, but they never knew what went into making this happen, who did what, how many people donated things, etc. We made regular trips to the Marine Corps training camp at Parris Island, where we found many grateful Jewish recruits and the Navy chaplain who would also become a lifelong friend. When my dad found out there was a maximum security prison in the area, that there were several Jewish inmates and no chaplain available except the local Baptist preacher, he wrote to the warden and introduced himself as the new Jewish chaplain for the prison. He made regular visits and saw to it that the few Jewish inmates who were there were taken care of for holidays, pastoral visits, and so on. He would be very unhappy to see that so many necessary changes to the prison system in this country have not yet come about. We hadn't been in Savannah long when my dad noticed in the newspaper the commercial port information. He saw the name of an Israeli Zim line ship due to dock in 2 days. He called some of the community leaders and asked what they usually did for these regular visitors. Nothing, he was told. They never asked for anything. Do they even know there is a Jewish community here, he asked. Nobody could answer that. So the next day, my dad went to the harbor master's office and introduced himself as a representative of the local Jewish community and arranged to meet with the ship's officers after they had docked. The Zim officers were shocked to find that there was a Jewish community in Savannah, and they were thrilled to be offered the various services of the community, which were immediately put at their disposal. Word spread through the Zim line, and we soon counted many captains, first officers, engineers, and other ship's personnel as lifelong friends. One of the overriding values that my father practiced and taught was Ahavat Yisrael, love of all Jews. He extended that to all people. No family was ever turned away from programs at his JCCs because they could not pay. He planned programs which would attract all members of the Jewish community, no matter their denomination, and were open to the general public. Because he was a public figure representing the Jewish community, he always involved himself in local ecumenical groups and programming. He hoped that everyone would come to see that there is beauty and truth in all faith communities. I believe that he would be happy to see that ecumenical relationships continue in our general communities, but sad to see that within our own Jewish communities, we so often have not been able to get along with each other. This is an overview of how what I experienced and saw modeled for me as I grew up led to the way I live as a Jewish woman today. May my father's memory continue to be a blessing to me and others whose lives he touched. Thank you for your attention today as I record this during these unprecedented times. Shabbat Shalom.